So I had a friend just call me and tell me about something crazy going on her job. She's an ER nurse. She works overnight shift over at the same hospital that I used to work at. She says that the other night there was a man that came in as a trauma. He got into like a horrific car accident. He was practically like clinging to life. She stayed with him the whole night, but unfortunately by the morning he had passed away. She ends up clocking out, going home, sleeps for the rest of the day. That night when she comes back for her shift, some of the nurses are talking about a man in that same room. So apparently after the man passed away, they obviously moved his body out of the room, and then the new patient got moved into that same room. That patient said that he saw a man outside of the window, because there was a window, mind you, this is like on the second or third floor. There was a man standing outside of the window with his face like pressed in, like trying to get back into the room. And I guess the patient was like freaking out, calling the nurses, but when the nurses came in, no one saw anything. When the man described what this person looked like, it sounded identical to the patient that my friend had the night before, you know, the one that passed away. She doesn't believe in any of that stuff. Like, she kind of does, but she's just kind of like, who knows, maybe he was hallucinating. But she said that later on that night in her shift, she heard tapping coming from that window. And again, this window is on either the second or third floor. She heard tapping coming from that window. When she looked over, she saw like a shadow, like it looked like a shadow of like a person right outside that window on the second floor.
So one of y'all did ask for a story. I'm outside catching a little bit of breeze, giving y'all the story time. Okay, so roughly 2 years ago, I was at one of our so we have like different locations. So I was floated to a location that's more, the setting's more like a nursing home kind of, where the patients are in their own room and they have like a patio, and it's so spacious. It's actually really nice. Some people think it's creepy, but I like it. But anyways, at nighttime it gets cold. You know, the hospitals are cold or whatever. So I was sitting in the patient's room because I could adjust the heater. So I was sitting in there because I get cold really, really fast. So I was sitting in there, and I was so tired that night. Like, I was so tired, but I was like, okay, let me just sit in this room, let me warm up, and I'll start my rounds around like 4 o'clock. I'll start my round because I had like a full group. So I'm sitting in there, and I was on the phone. I was probably watching on TikTok or something, because the patients were asleep, no one was calling, and I had already did my 12 or 1 o'clock rounds. And around like 3 o'clock, I look up and I see like a shadow walk out of the room. Now, for me to describe how it looks, so the way the room is facing like this, so you can see the hallway, right? So I'm sitting in the chair and I look out the door and I can see the hallway, and I see this black shadow, and it was like it looked like a man, but I couldn't see anything. It just looked like a black shadow, and the black shadow walked out the room. It looked at me, and then it looked back, and it walked through the wall. Now, around that time, it was like 3:30-ish when that occurred. So I'm like, okay, things like that usually happen. So I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna ignore it. I'm just gonna ignore it, whatever. I believe in the good Lord, okay? I shall not fear. Understand? That's none of my business. What they do, when they leave, how they leave, whatever that was, that's none of my business. That's none of my concern. But like I told you, the way the rooms are, they have a patio. So I thought, okay, maybe I'm just seeing things because I'm tired. It's my 3rd night. Maybe I'm sleepy. So I go back to doing what I was doing because I'm about to do my round soon anyway. So I'm like, okay, I'm tripping. And the patio door opens behind me. Like, it unlocks, and the way it is, it's like a handle. You have to literally like push it down to open the door, and it unlocks. And around that time, it was probably like 3:45 or whatever, I don't know. So I got up and I said, you know what, let me just do my rounds. Let me just do my rounds. I went to the nursing station. I told the nurses, hey, you know, what time are you guys gonna pass your meds? Do you want me to do the rounds now, or I can do it after the med pass? That way the patient doesn't feel any pain, because you know, a lot of them are terminally ill, their bodies are aching and they hurt. And they were like, okay, after. So I started my round maybe like 4:30. In the room where I saw the black figure, the man walk out of, the patient had passed. And in my mind, I was just like, was that the patient? You know, like, was that the patient that walked out the room? Or is it something where like a real spirit, like a death spirit come and get them? Like, what was that? And why was it looking at me? Like, why did it at me? And that facility in itself, like, people always experience like different type of things or whatever that occurs, or they see people or whatever.
Tell me a story about a time that you know that you saw something, but you don't ever tell this story because you know that no one would.
Anybody who's ever worked in long-term care in a nursing home, there's always some kind of ghost stories, paranormal stories. And no matter where you work, it always seems that these stories are like, no matter where they're like different variations of the same story. So I always just assumed most of these stories were just from overactive imaginations or stories that have just been passed down and passed down. But there is a lot. So anyways, this is a story of what I guess we'll call the trench coat man. I worked at a nursing home in the early 2000s. There was a story about what they called the trench coat man. And he would stand down at the end of the hall and just stand there. I never really believed it because I had never seen anything. I'm very much a skeptic, so I was like, I've never seen anything. Anyhow, so that night I had stayed over to work part of a shift on the overnights. And so it was after midnight. I was working a hall, and it's a long hallway, and so they called it 2-3. The first part of the hallway was 2, and the second part of the hallway was hall 3. And right in the middle, there was a hall that intersected, and they called that 4. So it's nighttime, but in the halls, if you've ever been in a nursing home after dark, they turn the overhead lights off, but there are little lamps that are going down the hallway, and they're usually like right after residents' rooms, doorways. So it's lit up enough that you can walk and kind of see your surroundings, but it's not lit up like the overhead lights are on, but you can see what's going on. So I was walking down 2, and I went to go, and as I was going down 2, went to turn onto 4. As I did, I looked up and looked down hall 3, because I was working 2-3 just to check on the hallway. When I looked down there, there was a man. What looked like a man. Assuming a man, it was a large black figure, shadow, outline of a man or person standing down there. Very tall, large, almost looming. He had a hat on, or what looked like a hat, and he was just standing there, like staring right back at me. Now, my first initial thought was not that this was something paranormal. I more thought that it was either somebody was in the nursing home or there was a resident who was up. So either way, I was going down there to figure out what it was. As I was standing there, before I could even take a step, this figure turned, looked into this room, and turned his body and walked into the room. I walked into the last room, which that was a resident's room. And I thought, oh gosh, that's not good. Got to get down there. So I continue to walk down 3, never take my eyes off of hall 3. I get down there to that room, and I walk in, and there's nobody there. The only person that's in there is the resident who resides in that room, and that person could not walk. They were bedridden, so they couldn't get up. The only other person that was big enough to fill out a silhouette like that was another resident who was right next door. But I knew he was asleep because the whole time as I was walking down there, I could hear him snoring because he snored loud. And so I get down there. Like I said, there's nobody in that resident's room. That other resident is not awake. There is no one to be found. I don't know if it was a trench coat man. I don't know if I was tired or what. But I know I watched a black shadow stand there, stare at me, then look at the room right next to him, and then slowly turn his body and walk into that room. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't, but who knows?
Okay, so right now I'm on New Orleans TikTok where they're talking about all the like haunted and like vampire stuff that's like happening to them. And I don't have like a lot of like stories like this, but I do have one of when I was an EMT, and me and my 50-year-old Christian woman partner, who she does not believe in this stuff at all, we were taking this patient that was on a 5150 that was being extended. And so we took her to like a longer stay home, which I've never seen like a home like this in LA before. But it was basically like this wood house in Atwater Village. And the moment you pull up, it just looks like this wooden Victorian situation, like something you would see in a movie. Like if you've ever seen that movie Monster House as a kid, like that's what it looked like. And the vibes were just like not right as soon as you got out. But I was like, you know, whatever. We get out, and this poor woman, she was just not doing well. She was, I don't think I'm allowed to tell you what was wrong with her. Anyways, we get out and she was like, please don't leave me here. Like I can see things, and like she's like sobbing to me. She's like, please don't leave me here. But like, I have to. You know, like, as much as I don't want to leave you here because it is fucking haunted, you can tell. What am I supposed to do? I'd be kidnapping you. Anyways, we get inside. We can barely get her freaking gurney in there. And we're taking her up to the room. The whole time she's just sobbing, this poor girl. And my partner just kind of attributed that to that obviously she didn't want to be in another mental health institution. But so we took her there. They did her vitals. They took her to the room and whatever. We were all done. We get in this elevator. And I'm like nervous laughing just thinking about it. We like condense our little gurney and we close the elevator and it says 3, 2, 1 and those are the only buttons. So we click 1 and we stop at 1, the doors don't open, and then it just keeps going down and I'm like, what the fuck? And the doors open. Pitch black. It's pitch black. This is obviously the basement, right? It's pitch black and you can't really hear anything except like this growling, and not like that, but like growling of like a machine or something, and it's just like really eerie, and the vibes, the energy was just sucked out. Like it's like negative energy. I'm pushing the button and she's looking at me like, Hannah, please push the button. And I was like, I'm trying, like, and I'm pushing 1, I'm pushing 2, I'm pushing everything just so we could go up. And I'm not even shitting you when I say this. I say this with my whole heart. This is the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. We heard footsteps. Slow footsteps. Like a heeled man's shoe walking from the back of the room to the front of the room, but it's pitch black. You can't see anything. Slow footsteps. And she looks at me and I was like, and we're both pushing buttons. We're pushing the emergency button. We're trying to manually close it because something was wrong. They are about to like come in the elevator light. The footsteps are about to come in the elevator light, and finally it closes. We go back up to 1, and she is like pooping her pants. I am like shaken to the core, and we look at the security guard, and I'm like, there is something wrong with your elevator. It took us to the basement. He said, we don't have a basement here, ma'am. We get back in the ambulance. We just had to sit there. We couldn't even clean the gurney for a minute. Like, we had to sit there. And she said, what the fuck? This poor woman, she doesn't cuss. She's a good Christian woman. And we just never talked about it. Even talking about it is giving me, like, goosebumps. Because
Okay, you all asked for it, so here we go. My name's Sydney. I worked as an ER nurse for about 10 years, and I have seen some crazy stuff, but this one in particular still keeps me up at night. Because I don't want to violate any HIPAA laws, I am not going to be naming any patients in this story, and I cannot give you the exact location, but I can tell you it happened in the Appalachian Mountains. So we got a call from EMS, and the original call was for an elderly lady with altered mental status, but then a call came in right after that, and it was for her son that had a severe arm injury. So that's a pretty normal call to get for like an older person not acting right. They can have UTIs, they could, sometimes dementia, things like that can make them act different. But the fact that she was coming in with her son, and her son had a severe arm injury, we were all like, what's going on? So she came in first. They brought her in on the stretcher, and she was in handcuffs. This like 80-something tiny little woman in handcuffs. So of course we were like, get her out of these handcuffs. Like, she's gonna rip her skin. Like, what is going on? And baby, as soon as those handcuffs came off, I understood why they put them on her. This frail 80-year-old woman had the strength of like a grown 40-year-old man. It took multiple nurses, multiple security officers, and paramedics to just hold her down on the stretcher. She was also contorting her body in ways that I never thought possible. Just like her spine, like coming up off the stretcher, her legs up by her head, like it was weird. She was thrashing all over the bed, biting, spitting, kicking. The scariest part is her voice was not like a normal, like 80-year-old woman voice. It was this deep, guttural, like voice. At one point, she looks over at me and she goes, "Get this brute out of me." And as we're dealing with this, her son comes in behind her, and his arm has a massive chunk
bitten out of it. And I'm not trying to get too gory on you guys, but like I'm talking tendons, ligaments hanging out of his arm. So we got more information from the son and he was like, yeah, that's my mom. She lives with me, but this is not my mom. Like, she is normally a sweet little lady, and then she just came in my room in the middle of the night, bit down on my arm and ripped a huge chunk out of it and just continued to attack me. And he's like, I had no other option but to call the police. So we start doing all the things to get this lady to calm down so she wouldn't hurt us or hurt herself. I'm talking sedatives, IV injections, all the things. Nothing is touching her. We gave her enough medicine to put down like a horse, and nothing touched it. We also ran all the tests that would cause her to act this way. Like, we did a urine screen, we did like blood work, all the things. Everything came back completely normal. At one point, one of the nurses said, we need some holy water. As soon as holy water was mentioned, this lady, like I told you, she was thrashing all over the place, stopped thrashing and just looks up and goes, don't you dare. All of us nurses just kind of looked at each other like, well, that was weird. We ended up admitting her to a room upstairs. I obviously did not see this because I stayed down in the ER, but it was later told that nothing they did helped her. She just continued to act completely insane until the son was like, I want an exorcism done on her. They had to call in a priest to the hospital to do the exorcism, and shortly after that she went home. So believe what you want, but the fact that this lady's tests results all came back clear and the only thing that ended up helping her was an exorcism, I mean, I know what I believe, and that's why I'm right with the Lord. But it's still just one of the wildest things that ever happened to me as a nurse. So now I'm interested, has anyone else ever had an encounter like this? If you have, leave it in the comments. And also, if you want more stories about some of the crazy things that I've seen as an ER nurse, I was also a psychiatric nurse for 3 years, then let me know.
Entirely true. I'll go first.
Okay, so this story still freaks me out to this day. Every time I tell it, it gives me goosebumps. I cannot believe that this happened to me and my colleague, but I figured I would share. So I was working a few years ago at a NICU as a night shift nurse here in Dallas, and we do our touch times every 3 hours, and of course around 3 a.m. I'm kind of doing my touch time. And where I was kind of down the hallway at the very end. It was in the triplet room, but where I was standing I could see all the way down the hallway. And I'm getting the milk ready, about to put it in the warmer, and I see my friend around the corner, and she is walking to me like fast, and she looks ghostly white. Her eyes were wide, and she said, Kendall, you need to drop what you're doing and you need to follow me now. You have to come and see this. So I'm like, okay, well, let me put this in the warmer real quick and then I'll follow you. So put it in the warmer, and I start walking down the hallway around the corner, and as we're walking, she's kind of telling me what happened. And so she was, kind of to give you a layout of the land first, she was in 2 twin rooms. In each room there was two beds with babies in them, and in between there's a sliding glass door separating the rooms, so you could open it if there happened to be 4 babies. You could just leave it open, but hers was closed to separate the rooms. And in between each bed spot there was a computer in between, and she had lullaby music playing on it. And she was in one room with one of the babies, and she was about to draw a lab on it, and all of a sudden the computer screen shuts off and she notices that the music stopped playing. And so she kind of glances up and she's like, oh, that's weird. And out of the corner of her eye in the opposite room, through the sliding glass doors, she sees on that computer something red. So she fully looks at it, and it is a red devil face, fully taking up the entirety of the screen, staring at her, and like on the screen. And so she immediately drops what she's doing, and that's when she grabbed me. So I'm rounding the corner, fully expecting it not to be there still, after all the time of her coming to get me and coming back. But I round the corner, and from the hallway I look into the room, and I also see it. So both of us are looking at this. My mouth drops wide open. I get teary-eyed. I'm basically crying because I'm so scared.
And I was too afraid to go in that room. So we go into the other room that she was in originally, and I'm standing on the opposite side of the sliding glass door into that room, just staring at this face, this devil face on the screen. And I didn't know what to do. But I'm religious, so I immediately start praying out loud. I said, Lord, please protect us. Please protect this baby. Whatever this is, it is not welcome here. And I just repeated that because I didn't know what else to do. It literally makes my eyes water because it scares the crap out of me. I couldn't make this up. And so I was repeating that for a solid minute and somehow mustered up the courage to say, you know what, this isn't okay. I'm going to turn it off. I take a step towards the door and the screen shuts off. It goes black for a split second, and then all of a sudden it goes back to playing YouTube. Playing like the lullaby music that was on YouTube. And I go in there and I scour it because I am a little bit of a skeptic, and I looked at the search history. I looked at everything that it could have possibly been, like any browsers that were open, anything. I also know that with YouTube, if it's baby lullaby music, generally the commercials that pop up are relatable. So you're gonna see diaper commercials and things like that. And I mean, I was so just confused as to what that could have been. And I mean, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, something evil is there. I was so afraid to go back to work. We obviously reported it just in case there was some sort of hacking into the system, but it's a secure system because at the end of the day, it is a hospital. They have a lot of records that they have to keep secure. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Like I said, I can't believe that this happened to me. It still freaks me out to this day, but I don't know.
Wow, I just had a really interesting experience. So I have to cover my shirt because it's my company name and people don't need to know where I work. But I was just visiting one of my transitioning patients. She's actually actively dying. And we were just I was just, around the bed with, her daughters, and we're talking, we're having a conversation, just talking about a bunch of random things. And, we come out of the room, we're in the kitchen talking. Well, no, excuse me, in the room, I got a phone call. My phone was on vibrate. I forgot that I turned it on vibrate, so I felt my pocket vibrating. It's oh, I got a call. I'm thinking that it's the number, it was a Blue Island number. If you're in Illinois, you know that. I thought the area code, the number calling, was a different, patient's family member. And I'm thinking, oh gosh, I have a patient in that area who's also actively dying. Maybe, this is the phone call. And I saw that I had a voicemail left, right? So when we're in the kitchen, I'm talking to the patient's daughters, and I'm telling them, because this patient specifically, today is Tuesday, she hasn't opened her eyes or talked or did anything. She's kind of been in a comatose state since, I want to say it was Saturday. When I came to my visit yesterday, as soon as she heard my voice, she opened her eyes. She tried to look at me. She started moving, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" Was she waiting to see me, hear me? And I was the only person that was able to arouse her, over the past 2 days. Obviously, when I came today, she wasn't, waking up. She wasn't moving, opening her eyes, none of that. But I was, talking to them about I try as a nurse, especially in this line of work, to keep kind of a little bit of a barrier, and not in an informal, cold way, but just I have to protect my, mental health and my own well-being as well, because this job, when you work in hospice, you see people die all day, every day. And so it can be emotionally taxing and draining. And so, I do my best to try to keep a little bit of a barrier, but there are some patients and families who just poke through that barrier and knock it down, and you get really close, and you get attached. And so I'm telling them about a patient that I had lost back in I want to say it was back in March, if I remember correctly. And or either April, one of the two. And I was very close to that patient. She was with me for about 9 or 10 months. I got really close with her daughter, love her daughter down. We are still like this. And I was telling them about her, and, you know, and I was like, I think your mom might be a close, you know, second to that. Like, not like she's second place to that patient, but just like she might be another one who I just will remember her, and it'll be difficult for me to forget her because of how impactful just she is. And so I leave the visit, I get in my car, and I check my phone because I had a missed call. So I'm thinking, you know, and I'm like, oh, I have a voicemail. Let me listen to the voicemail. Well, it was only a 6-second silent voicemail. There was no talking. There was no nothing, just a silent voicemail. And so I call the number back, and I didn't hear the name of the facility. I thought it was a different facility that I have another patient at. So I'm, you know, talking to the receptionist, and she's like, oh, no, we don't have a patient here by that name. And I'm like, wait, what facility did you say this was again? And she says the name, and I was like, oh, well, yeah, I had a patient here who died back in like March or April, I forget now which month it was, but like, I'm like, yeah, I had a patient there who passed. And the receptionist was like, okay, hold on. She puts me on hold for a few seconds, and then she comes back and she's like, yeah, nobody called regarding that person. You know, I'm not sure why you got a call, but yeah, no one called. And I was like, what the heck? I was literally just talking about that patient or thinking about her. And for me to have a missed call with a silent voicemail from that facility that patient was at, and nobody called me, I had to call that family back that I was just with. And I told one of her daughters, like, you will never believe what the heck just happened. Like, we were just talking about how impactful this patient was to me. Obviously, I didn't share like specifics of like names or anything like that, but just like explaining to them like how impactful this patient was for me and how difficult her passing was, because it was like, in hospice, things aren't necessarily unexpected, but her passing was unexpected because nobody saw it coming. Like, she wasn't showing signs that she was going to pass before she passed. And so I was just like, I just like shook it up, because like, what the heck? Like, things happen to me, but this might by far be one that is just like, it takes the cake of like strange things that have happened. Like, I've never had that happen, and I'm shook. So I don't know, but like in a good way, because I'm smiling. So like, I feel good. Like, my girl's with me, you know, she be looking out, and she just wanted to say hi, I guess. I don't know, maybe her and my patient who's passing, you know, maybe she came to just say hello, you know, and yeah, and say hello to me. So yeah, it's things like this as a hospice nurse that just make you be like, okay, like, I know as a nurse, I've made an impact in people's lives, and they're grateful and appreciative, and, you know, people have made an impact in my life just as much. And yeah, it's crazy. I just wanted to share that. That's it. That's all. Gotta go back to work.
Okay, I worked at a haunted hospital, okay, owned a postpartum unit as a CNA, and that hospital is haunted, okay, and ain't nobody gonna tell me different. The postpartum unit is definitely haunted, okay. I have so many stories, but this is one that happened. So I was working night shift. We would only have one CNA on usually, okay, so it's just me and the nurses. This hospital is super old hospital. It's the only hospital in the community other than the hospitals on the military base, but for everyday civilians, it's the only hospital, so it's pretty old. It's been renovated. Anyway, the postpartum unit, the nurse station is here in the middle. One side is postpartum, one side is pediatrics. We don't, by that time, oh, sorry, my chest started hurting. Anyway, so like I said, so the pediatric side and the postpartum side. At that time that this incident happened, we had no patients on the pediatric side, none at all. So we had cribs down there, we had all kinds of storage stuff down there, and we did have a supply closet down there. Other than that, that's all we had down there, because it was completely empty. We had low census. We only had patients on postpartum. So, you know, the night's going good. I'm working with my besties. You know, we ordered our DoorDash. We're having us a good night. It's a good night, okay? All of a sudden, call bell starts ringing. And I'm like, okay, like, that's weird, because I done take care of everybody else. Like, something must be going on. Like, why is the call bell going off? Like, what does this mama's need? So I go look at it, because the call bell is in a nurse's station. And I answer the phone. I say, this is Maria. How can I help you? Nothing. I say, okay, that's weird. So I go I get out the nurse station and I go look, and I see that there's a light ringing down the pediatric side. Mind you, there's no patients down there. So I'm like, why is that light ringing? There's nobody down there. I'm like, okay, whatever. So I just hang up the phone. I'm like, okay, because sometimes, like, maybe it's a glitch. Okay, it's fine. Like, it's an old hospital, whatever. I knew there was no patients down there. Like, for 100% I knew. So I was like, I'm not even going to walk down there. I'm trying to eat my little food while it's hot, whatever. So then about like 5 minutes later, call bell goes off again. I answered. I say, hello, this is Maria. How can I help you? Nothing. I say, okay, all right. So I get out and I go look, and again, it is the same light down the pediatric side that's in this one particular room that's ringing. I'm like, okay, like, what is somebody down there? Like, is a housekeeper down there? Is somebody down there that actually needs some help? So I walk down the hallway. Mind you, as soon as I start walking down the hallway, I start feeling nauseous, okay? And maybe it's in my head, maybe it's not, but I start feeling nauseous, I start feeling anxious. I'm walking down the hallway looking like this, like make sure ain't nobody behind me, because I'm the only person walking down this pediatric hallway by myself. I get to the room because I can see on the outside of the door that the light is flashing, and I look in. And when I look inside of the room, not only is there no patient there, there's nothing in the room. And by nothing, I mean there's no bed, there's no bedside table, there's no remote control for the TV, there's no call light. There's no call light, okay? How is the call light ringing not only on the outside, it's ringing on the outside of the door and at the nurse's station? There's no call light in there. By that, I mean, if you work in a hospital, those call lights attached to the wall. It's like a long, cord attaches to the wall that has like a remote, whatever. That wasn't in the room. Now, this was pretty common that there wasn't stuff in the room because we had low census, so sometimes other units would borrow our stuff, or sometimes we would just not have anything in the room because we would be putting our big cribs, in there, whatever. So I wasn't surprised that there wasn't nothing in the room. However, I was surprised, okay, that not only was the call light going off and there's nobody in the room, but there's no call bell. There's no call bell, okay? I about ran back to the nurse's station. You know how SpongeBob was like running when he's taking the trash out? Like, that was me. And that is one of many stories I have of when I worked at a haunted hospital, okay?
Okay, everybody keeps asking me to give them a warning before I do these spooky videos. This is that warning. Yeah. So, I was still doing home health care because it was flexible. Yeah, I know y'all gonna talk about me. So, my company sent me and a partner to this condo of this 80-year-old woman who had just gotten out of the hospital. She was in there for a month. She was in perfect health until she wasn't one day. So they sent two of us there because they said it was a lot of things that needed to be done around the house, and they wanted to make sure it got done in a timely manner. So both of us are there. First thing we notice when we walk in is she still has her original like drapery. They said that she bought this condo in the 1970s. She still had the 70s drapes, the 70s couches, and when you go to the master bedroom, she still had the drapery that's like up top. She still had that, and you could tell she ain't dusted. So we're around there like cleaning like crazy, and we decide to sit down, take us a break. So we're sitting in the living room, and we heard a noise. It wasn't distinctive, so we couldn't tell where it was coming from. So we pretty much chalked it up to it could have been one of her 4 cats, because she had 4 cats and they were all in the basement. They were always fighting. So yeah. So fast forward to my partner wanted to go on break. She wanted to go on break, so she decided to take a nap on her break. And so while she was taking a nap, I'm still doing notes, but I hear walking. And I heard walking coming from the back from where the rooms are. So of course I'm like, she can't walk. So I stand up, I walk back there, but while I'm walking back there, it's like the air is getting thicker and I feel sick. So I step into the guest room. Now, she's in the guest room because of the hospital bed, and her master bedroom still has the king size bed in there. So the guest room is where they put her. Now, remember, the hospital beds are like kind of high up and you can see right up under it. While I'm looking around the room, I see a body laying flat up under the bed, just laying flat with their head just straight back like this. And so once it realized, and I'm saying it because I still don't know if that was a demon or not till this day, once it realized that I could see it, It looked over towards me and let out this huge laugh, ran past me. I like jumped out the way because I do not want that thing running into me, bumping into me, nothing. Ran past me and ran into the master bedroom. And when I ran in there and looked, it was crawling up under her king bed. Like, what? So after I saw that the thing or it crawled up under her king bed in her master bedroom, I ran out there and I told homegirl, like, hey, we need to pray around this house. Now, I felt more comfortable telling her certain stuff because she believed. And she wasn't a seer, but she definitely didn't mind praying. Okay, so I went to go get her and I grabbed my Bible because remember, I always travel with my Bible, took my Bible out my bag. We went back there to the master room and we started praying. And while we're doing that, it kicked its feet out from underneath the bed, kicking it. Like, I guess joking around. I don't know what it was doing. But when it did that, why my friend, I said, I'm about to disown you because she walks over there talking about something, I'm about to look under it. No, you not. You ain't finna look under nothing. Let's go to the living room now until it's time to go. So once me and her go back to the living area, she was like, girl, I just, I'm curious. I just wanted to see for myself. No, you don't. You don't want to see nothing for yourself. So she was like, I'm going to go look. Oh, okay. And you going by yourself? You going by yourself. So she goes in there. And I'm guessing that she looked under the bed, raised the bottom up, the drape at the bottom, and raised it up. And I guess they got hold of her hand. She said, like she screamed. I ran back there. She said, something touched my arm. Why would you put your arm? Girl, y'all, she pissed me off. I'm thinking about it now. Anyway, so we go back to the living room. It's 4 a.m. I tell my mama, I call her. Yes, I called my mama at 4 a.m. Told her what I saw and what was going on. And so she told me, she said, you know what to do. So started praying around there. I had the water that my mom blessed. Went around there blessing the house. But the thing got so aggravated. And next thing you know, I look up and it's 2 of them. And it got so aggravated that it started knocking stuff over. Now, remember, this is a 70s condo. Okay, this woman has been here for years at this point. Years. It's knocking down all her expensive stuff. This woman is loaded. All right. So it's knocking down, it knocked down this vase that she had. It was other stuff like up on this little shelf. It was knocking over everything. So once the other 2 people that was coming in to relieve us got there, it made it look like we did it. And still to this day, I think that they think we just went around destroying stuff. So we had to come up with a lie to say that the cats did it, that they were around there jumping around, because we just knew that she wasn't going to believe what was going on. Now, my friend that was with me did not see the things knocking it over. I saw the things knocking it over, but she saw them falling by themselves. But I will never forget when I was leaving, me and her decided that we were going to give that assignment to them other 2 girls because they wanted to do night shift. So we decided we were going to go somewhere else. But once we decided that we were no longer going to be coming to that woman's house, we ended up leaving and we were packing some things up. We saw them things just standing there, and they were outside of the home. So I don't know if they were attached to the inside and the outside, but they were able to leave to be outside of the home. So the noise that we heard, maybe that was them coming in.
This is probably one of the creepiest things that has ever happened to me. When I was younger, I was working night shift in a nursing home as a CNA. Night shift in and of itself is pretty creepy, but I had been doing this for years, and so it didn't creep me out that much. Well, one night shift, it was like 4 o'clock in the morning, and I was getting a resident ready for the day shift CNA when they came in. We were always short-staffed, so it was just something we did to help out. Just what we could, especially for the residents that like to wake up early. So this particular resident had a roommate, and for our rooms with 2 people, there was usually 1 person by the door and then 1 person by the window. So my guy was window guy. So I'm walking in the room and it's dark. Again, it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm not about to turn the light on these poor people. So I just flipped the bathroom light on to give me a little bit of light so I could see what I was doing as I walked past door guy over to window guy. And as I'm walking over to my guy, I feel on my shoulder like this huge hand just kind of grab my shoulder. Not in a hard or threatening kind of way, not in a mean way, but just like somebody trying to get my attention kind of way. So I immediately assumed it was the roommate, but when I turned around, there was nobody there, and the roommate was sound asleep in his bed. So again, it's late, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. I convinced myself that I'm just imagining it. It's not a big deal, just get your shit done. So I go over to window guy and I'm getting him ready and we're having a conversation, a quiet one because the roommate is still sleeping. So I get to the part where I have to put his TED socks on. And if you don't know what TED socks are they're very common in healthcare. They're really tight socks that you put on and it helps with circulation. But when you're working in a nursing home with the elderly, because they have such thin skin, you have to be really careful that there's no wrinkles in them. Otherwise it can damage their skin. So I had come up with this method at this point to kind of ensure that there was no wrinkles in the TED socks, where I would just kind of go like this with my fingers, go over the tip of their toes, and then, run my hands down to make sure that there was no wrinkles in the TED sock. So as I'm doing this, I'm getting him ready. I get his TED socks on and I walk over and I do the right thing and I run my hand from his toes to his knee to make sure there was no wrinkles. And just when I get to his knee, I shit you not, I feel a set of hands go like this and do the exact same thing to my leg from my ankle to my knee. And I just about shit my pants because I was certain what I felt, like somebody mimicking what I was doing to this person, but doing it to me. It was so creepy. And the creepiest part, like that wasn't enough. The creepiest part was the resident was looking at me like, what is going on? And I'm like, I didn't even know what do you say? I'm like, whatever. And then he makes some comment like, oh, you look like you just seen a ghost. And that was not the last time something like that happened to me in this nursing home. So I am positive that this place was haunted. But I don't know. What do you guys think? Has anything like this ever happened to you? Leave a comment and let me know.
So a few years ago, I worked in this nursing home. I worked on a dementia floor, so things were pretty chaotic to begin with. If you've ever worked with dementia patients, you know what I'm talking about. This one particular day, I was working overnight, and when I arrived, I was going to each of my patients' rooms to read their report from the day. This one patient I had, she was completely bedridden. You had to lift her. She's pretty small though, so I could always do it myself. So when I got to her room, she's laying on the floor beside her bed. And my first thought is like, oh my God, she fell out of bed. So I went over to her and I was like, Miss blank, like, are you okay? Like, what happened? Did you fall? And she said, oh no, honey, the man put me here. So I thought that she meant the male nurse that was there that day. So I went out to the nurse's station and I was like, why did you put her on the floor? Kind of weird. It's a little strange. And he was like, what are you talking about? And I told him, I was like, she said that a man put her on the floor. You are the only man here. And he's like, I did not put anybody on the floor. So I went back into her room, and again, she was a very tiny lady. I was able to get her up and into her bed by myself, and I finished doing what I needed to do and left the room. A few hours went by, like around midnight, I was doing my rounds again just to check on everybody, and I heard her talking in her room. It's not like uncommon for dementia patients to be like talking to themselves, but I stopped by her door to listen to what she was saying, and I heard her say, no, I can't get out of bed again, they'll get mad. Immediately, just chills everywhere. So then I went around the corner to look into her room, and she is like hovering above her bed, like this much. And as soon as it's only for like 2 seconds, and as soon as I look at her, she drops down to the bed. And needless to say, that was my last shift at that nursing home. I literally never returned. And I have a lot more stories about that nursing home. That was just like the last straw, what made me quit. But if you want to hear more about what happened there, let me know.
I'm going to tell you about the scariest thing that has ever happened to me while being a nurse, and it happened at my old hospital that I worked at for a couple years. And I had a patient one day. She had cirrhosis of the liver, so she was terminal, and she passed away in just a really terrible way. I went home, got a few hours of sleep, went back to work, and I was doing my first morning patient rounds at 5:30 a.m. I had a patient at the end of the hall, and it just happened to be just across the way from the patient who had passed away the night before. And as I'm walking out of this patient's room after checking on him, I kind of glance over into her room, and it was completely empty, because we had cleaned out all of her belongings. But I saw my charge nurse standing at her window, and she was looking very intently out the window at something. And I'm like, what are you doing? I said she was in there. I could see her silhouette. So it was really dark, and the sun was just starting to come up enough for me to see the silhouette of her body. And I'm like, what are you doing in here? And she slowly like turns her body and she looks at me and doesn't say anything. So I'm like, okay, weirdo, you're like starting to freak me out. Seriously, why are you in here? You know, and I flipped the light switch on, and as soon as the lights came on, no one was there.
I'm pretty sure this is going to be the last home health care video that I'll be making. I have to double check my book, but around that time I was always writing things down whenever they happen, but I'll have to double check and let you know. So let's get into it. So around this time I was packing a bag about 3 days, sometimes even 2 weeks, and I'll be going to these clients' houses. I was working for this home health care company. And so I packed the bag for the 24th, 25th, and 26th of December, and I was at this woman's house. Now I had already been to her house months before. I had been there consistently for months, and nothing ever happened in her house. So here we are. This is a small house. We're up in the living room and we're dancing. She likes to dance. And so we're up there dancing, having a ball. And I noticed a lot of new decoration. I'm like, oh, you've been decorating? She's like, yeah, the other girl, whenever she's on shift, she helps me decorate. I'm like, cool. The doorbell rings. I go to the doorbell. I go to the door. I open the door, and it was my coworker, the woman that she was just talking about. And she brought this chair. And I'm like, you brought a chair? She was like, yeah, it's adding to our decoration. This is something that we like doing together. I'm like, okay, cool. That was sweet. So she brings the chair in. When she brought the chair in, she set it all the way at the end of the hall. And it had this painting that was over it. So I'm like, okay, that's sweet. So we continue our stuff. The lady leaves. We continue dancing. And then the woman wants to get in bed. So I put her in bed. Fast forward to after I put her in bed, I put the motion sensors down just in case she gets up. So the motion sensors started going crazy. And I looked at the camera, and she's laying in bed. She's knocked out. So finally I stand up, and when I stand up to go check and peek my head around the corner, there's this dark figure sitting in the chair that my coworker had just brought into the house. Can't make out if it's a man or a woman just yet, but it was a very dark figure, and I heard stomping, but it didn't sound like feet. And then I look over, and it has like this cane in its hand, just stomping it on the ground, on the floor. So finally I get up, I run over to my duffel bag, and I get my Bible out, and I get to praying. And it's just sitting there looking at me like, and I said, so you just not gonna go? Like, you just not gonna leave? So then once I started to get aggravated, and I started to really be really forceful with the words from the Bible, that's when it stood up and it walked into the bathroom, and then it walked back out. But when it walked back out the bathroom, it did this high jump in the air. Like, okay, what was that about? After it did that little high jump, that weird thing, it disappeared from in front of me. But I heard the motion sensor, so I walked over to the camera. And when I walked over to the camera, I see his face, yes, it was a he, in the camera, and he's pointing at my client. So, of course, I'm aggravated. I go back there and I flick the lights on. I didn't care if she was asleep. I was just worried because I know you ain't here for her. Not right now. Not right now. So then fast forward, I played it off to the woman like, oh, do you have to use the bathroom? I'm so sorry that I flicked the light on like that. And so she's like, oh, no, I'm okay. So she lays back down. Once I go back out to the living room, I get to praying. I get to drawing crosses over all the doors, over all the windows. But next thing you know, I feel something walk behind me. And when I felt it, I turned around, and he's right here in my face, right here in my face. I almost dropped to the floor, y'all, but I couldn't do it because then he'd be thinking that he had one up on me. So that entire night, he would just randomly pop up in my face. He would randomly pop up on the sofa, or he would be sitting in that chair that my coworker brought. Now, this is the scariest part. The scariest part is the fact that right after he left up out of my client's room, I could hear her gasping for air like she needed me. And so I ran in there and I sat her up on the edge of the bed, and I'm like, are you okay? And she said that she said, I'm not ready to go yet. I'm not ready to go. Now, all this time, she's never talked like this. And so I'm just like, you ain't got to go yet if you don't want to. I think what made me more nervous about it is the fact that it was a dark figure that came to collect her. At that point, I was just like, do you want to pray with me? We had never prayed together before, but in that moment, she wanted to pray. So we prayed, right? So fast forward to while we're praying, he just sat down. Like, I wait. So I think that scared me too, because what has this woman done in her life that is so terrible to have a dark figure come to collect her and take her somewhere, and not even a prayer can stop it, can stop her from going with him. Now, here's the even scarier part. I got a feeling to look outside. So I went ahead and I looked out the window. And when I looked out the window, there were 2 other dark figures standing on the sidewalk. That scared the crap out of me, because I know y'all better just be here for her. So I hear knocking on the door. Of course, I'm not answering it because I just looked out the window. I saw y'all out there. I'm not opening the door. And so the woman, she starts getting hysterical, and she is like really going crazy. I'd never seen her like this before. And so do y'all know, like, probably not even 24 hours after I left, that woman passed away. She passed away, and in my head, I felt so bad, but in my head, I was thinking like, oh my God, this family gonna think I'm the Grim Reaper.
Welcome to spooky season on TikTok. I'm Meg. I've been a nurse for 16 years, and spirits have always followed me. So here are my haunted hospital stories. I hope the algorithm shows you this at night. This one night shift, the hospital was at capacity. I was working PCU, and we were admitting and discharging pretty quickly. And we had one room that we needed to fill. I had an admit coming, but the bed was broken. So that means I had to go all the way to another building, to the supply room, to get a new bed. I go with another CNA so that I'm not by myself. It's about 3 a.m. Of course it is. So we bring linens and everything, we go. There's one bed left in this maintenance supply room. So we sign it out, we take it, and we have to make the bed and then push it all the way from one building to the next. Well, there's a long hallway that is not fully lit at night. So they put on maybe half the lights. So we're pushing the bed from one side of the hallway to the other. When we get to just about the middle, the lights flicker on and off. I get a chill. The CNA that I was with looks down at the bed and screams. There was a footprint. Hold on, I have a picture. There was a man's footprint perfectly in the center of the bed. So creeped out. But of course, we're in a rush. What do when you are in a rush? Smooth it out. Go get the next patient. This picture is actually up on my Instagram. You should follow me on Instagram too. But I will never forget that. So creepy. This is actually one of the stories I told on the show Haunted Hospitals. What do you guys think? And FYI, I'll be doing stories the entire month of October, all of spooky season.
Do y'all believe in ghosts or spirits or anything like that? Well, I do. And you know what they say about working in them nursing homes, especially during third shift. I'm going to give you a little short, spooky story time. I used to work in Chelsea, Michigan at this facility. It was a nice facility. And it was before I was a CNA, so I was just a resident aide. It wasn't third shift, but it was the end of second shift. It was probably like 10 o'clock. We didn't get up till like 11 p.m. So it was me and my coworker. I'm going to just say her name, Jessica. And we was pretty much ready, or getting ready to go. And we had this lady, let's say her name is Betty. She was in her 90s. Let's say her name is Betty. She came out of her room. Now, mind you, Betty never come out her room. Like, for nothing. She got everything she needed in her room, including a bathroom and shower and stuff like that. So, me and her, my coworker, we just chilling, and we happen to see her. We like, is that Betty? So we rush over to her, ask her, what's going on? Are you okay? Because it's 10 o'clock at night, mind you. And this woman usually is asleep by now. And a little backstory, my coworker that is with me, she has psychic abilities. So she is able to see, sense ghosts, which I believe she can for real. But yeah, so Betty, she says out her mouth, she said, I can't go to sleep because there's a black man in my room. So I'm looking at my coworker like, so we just like, let's walk her down to the room and see what she's talking about. Now I'm already preparing myself mentally because I know it's not no black man. I'm like, who is she talking about? Like, we don't even, like, our coworker, we don't have no black man that work over here, like an actual African American man. So I'm like, who is she talking about? So we get to her room. I'm looking around, my coworker looking around. We don't see nothing. Now, she got a bathroom to the left when we walk in her room. So you walk in, to the left is the bathroom, and then it's her home room to, the rest of the room. So we looking around. We didn't see nothing. And my coworker's like, yeah, I don't see nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. Until we look in the bathroom. I went in the bathroom first because don't have no type of abilities. I don't know what's going on. So I'm just peeking in there. And my coworker, she behind me, and I turn around and look at her. And she just staring. Like this. So naturally, I got scared as fuck. Yeah. So I'm like, what you see? So she finally said something. She was like, it's right there in the bathroom. Me being logical, I'm like, what's in the bathroom? She was like, it's a spirit in the bathroom. So I fly out the room. And my coworker, she's still in there just staring away. So I'm asking her questions like, is it a good spirit, a bad spirit? And she said it was a bad spirit. So I'm like, how can you tell? How can you tell? She basically explained it like she could see shadows, and it was a dark, heavy, negative shadow. She said she could feel the energy, and it was a very dark shadow. She said if it was a good spirit, it would be like a light, shadowy looking thing instead, I guess. But yeah, I guess this man was just standing in her bathroom. Yeah. And Betty seen him. And she was not messing with this man. She did not want to go back in there. And literally, she would not. She didn't. She didn't go back in there. We left at 11, and I don't know what she did after that. I kind of want to start a series about this. So if y'all got some spooky stories, nursing home stories, send it to me, and I will tell it on here.
So my mom is a nurse, so she has a lot of scary ghost stories. And I told her, hey mom, I need content. Can you give me some of your ghost stories? And boy, did she deliver. The one that I'm going to tell you today is back when she used to work at a hospital in the 90s doing her graveyard shift. She's always done graveyard shift. She just prefers it that way. Well, it was in the 90s when my mom was working the graveyard shift with her fellow nurse at a nurse's station. And it was just the two of them. When all of a sudden, my mom just, she feels a breeze that is at her feet. And it's cold. Then she looks up and there's no draft, there's no vents. So she's like, okay, that's a little off, but she brushed it off. When not even a minute later, a woman comes up to my mom and tells her and her coworker, my mom just passed away. And my mom and her coworker, they get up and they burst into action. They do the paperwork, they call for transport, and then pretty soon the woman is transported, her body is transported out. And then hours just slip by. It was well past midnight when all of a sudden they hear another noise. It goes zoop, zoop, zoop. Sounds like this jarring mechanical noise, and it's just echoing throughout the hallway. So my mom and her coworker get up and they go investigate. So they go into the hallway, and then pretty soon they notice that the sound is coming from that room. The very room that the elderly woman had just died in hours before. So they work up the courage and they go in. That's when they saw it. The hospital bed was moving. It was going up and down and up and down and up and down. And nothing was moving it. There was no controls that were touched. It's lifting and lowering the mattress in jerky motions. And they're pressing, they're switching things on and off, and nothing is stopping this bed from going up and down, up and down, up and down. Until finally my mom just pulls the plug and she unplugs it. And that's when it just stops. But no one's touching it, right? No one was touching it, nothing. And so my mom was just maybe it's a malfunction. But even then, she still doubted it right away because the bed had never done that ever before. But so they just again brushed it off, right? They go back to the nurse's station and they go back to their little paperwork, right? Doing their little paperwork and their little computers, and the clock begins ticking. And that's when they hear another noise. It goes squeak, squeak, squeak. And then they both like freeze. And right in front of them, not even 4 feet away, they notice that the chair swivels slowly and then it just stops suddenly. And then they just stare at it. They stare at it, they're like hoping that it's over, and then as they're staring at it, they see it go squeak, squeak, and then the chair begins swiveling again for a few seconds until it just stops. And that's when my mom and her coworker are like looking at each other. They're like staring at each other in silence, and then her coworker is like, please tell me I'm not crazy, but the chair was moving, right? And my mom's like, yeah, the chair was definitely moving. And then after that, the night just kind of went back to normal. They didn't really experience anything else after that. And then after that, the nights after, the little things, the paranormal activity slowly started to fade. And like my mom says, that it felt like the patient wasn't ready to leave. That it seems like she was just watching there, waiting and playing with the nurses one last time. So that is one of my mother's scary stories. I definitely have a few more. I have one about a nun. I have one about a visitor. So let me know if you want to hear more.